Charlie, nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's an incredible pleasure. You don't know how much of a pleasure it is, because we as a community have been listening to your music for quite a long time now, and I was just telling them a bunch of your background and your story as a band, because there's quite a lot to tell, and I was telling them about how you started. And the way that you guys started reminded me of some glorious old bands, like, I don't know, for instance, Iron Maiden, who, instead of creating a vibe, a buzz around the fact of being pushed by the media, they created it by playing live and again and again and again and again. And that's what they did. And it really reminded me somehow of your approach, because that's pretty much the way you started, and you have like shitloads of live gigs in your kind of short existence, which is amazing. You must have something like 400, 500 gigs.
Yeah, I've probably got more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, about that. No, it's true. Yeah, it's what you say about just sort of not trying to create a hype or anything. We just knew that we wanted to play live. We didn't really think about it until upon like reflection, I guess, that's sort of the way that we approached it. But it was just sort of what made sense in that moment. And it's kind of like where I think a lot of our strength lies. And I think in London as well, we're lucky there are a lot of amazing independent venues like the Windmill in Brixton that were able to host us so many times.
Also, I was telling them about the Windmill. I was telling them that your base camp was just above a pub. It was actually inside a pub, the Queen said, and then opposite to the pub, if I'm not wrong, there's this Windmill venue, and basically you had your own night there. You could host other artists, and I read that you hosted 𝗓𝗪, you hosted Goat Girl, you hosted Black Midi. So I mean, you were promoting high quality music from your country too, instead of promoting yours.
Yeah, it was really fortunate. What was interesting about it is that they were all kind of our friends. I went to sixth form, which is when you're 17 and 18. In London with 𝗏𝗏, who's the lead singer of Goat Girl, and she was in a band. And then I did a year of art foundation at Camberwell with Asha, the lead singer of 𝗓𝗪. And so, these things came together quite naturally. And then, we started meeting more and more people. I think it started because when we were playing live all the time and we were 17, there weren't really any bands that we liked really. Who we were playing with, it'd sort of be like an acoustic night, and it would be like a 50-year-old married couple, covering 𝗓𝗪 Garfunkel, and then us. So it just didn't really seem to fit. We just wanted to sort of make a night. And the Windmill, what was so great about them was that they're one of the few venues that give you all of the money off the door that you make. So, otherwise you do a show and it would just cover sort of like your bus fare there or your train ticket to the gig or whatever. Whereas at the Windmill, you could come away with, sort of like 80 or 100 quid each, which at the age of 17,
wow,
is yeah, can buy a lot of Guinness with that.
Yeah. So, speaking of which.
Oh, lovely. So, I think we were just very lucky in terms of, and also in recent years, like all these other bands that have come up, like Squid, Black Country New Road, like Black Midi, as you mentioned, there's so much good music around.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because it's like England is the place to be. Well, I would say anywhere above the Channel is the place to be, because a lot of bands come from Ireland or Northern Ireland, and it's amazing to watch, because we're coming from years where newspapers or music magazines were telling us there were no guitar heroes anymore, no electric guitars were being sold anymore, no bands were playing anymore, and actually that's how it pretty much is around my country. Nobody plays. You don't see kids gathering around in rehearsal studios playing music. They're stuck at home with Logic, with Cubase or Ableton, and they're making their own electronic music or trap or rap. And it's quite surprising that so much rock is coming out of England at the moment, and it looks like a scene, but probably you're not aware that it is a scene yet.
I don't know, because what you're saying about music journalism, I think quite quickly, like, you know, it was described as this sort of like quote unquote South London scene. And, you know, I think that, you know, and I think some people found it a bit weird, but I guess in so many ways it is true. You know, there were, you know, I can't really describe why, you know, why at that moment there were so many bands who come about. I always think it's quite interesting where, you know, in England, in Ireland, you know, there's been a lot of amazing music that's come out over the past however many decades. And I think it's particularly interesting, you know, particularly in London and the UK, there's almost no funding for it. You know, there's no arts funding, you know, it's incredibly hard and it's grueling. And that sort of, I think that really sort of, you know, the people who you do see who are doing it, it gives them a lot more of a drive, because you're already entering something that's so hard to compete within. You know, it's so hard to, the possibility of even making, you know, being able to afford rent in London, you know, let alone, you know, play a lot of shows. So I think that's sort of, you know, like a real drive that everybody always is aware of. You know, there's not very much support, but there's a large form of support from communities and from these independent venues, and I think that's what keeps it going.
Yeah, that surprised me, because I read of a club in I think it was Camden, a metal club that was saved with a crowdfunding campaign, and I believe you did the same with the windmill. You raised money for the windmill to save it.
Yeah, we did. They did, like, so there was constant crowdfunding. I mean, what happened in at the beginning of lockdown, they still rent the windmill, and they didn't get, basically they got like no funding at all, and then the landlord of the property doubled the rent. You know, for the whole period of lockdown where they weren't making any money. So they put together a crowdfunding. They raised a lot. I think they're in the clear, you know, and you know, Liam Gallagher came forward with something, and all these other people, and we did kind of like funny auctions. So you know, I painted a picture for someone. I did a painting of Chet Baker for someone who could bid on it, and then Eddie in the van did a cook along, and then Josh and Charlie did a like, they'd write a song for anyone who won the bid. And so everyone kind of came together and just sort of, you know, did anything that we could do to try and help and support the windmill. You know, at the end of the day, it's sad, but finance is so important.
Do you think that this return of post-punk or rock in general has to do with rebelling towards society, as it was probably in the late 60s and early 70s? What it have to do with that? I was talking to New Pagans the other night. They're from Northern Ireland, and they were saying, well, you know, we have a lot to rebel against in our country, so it's pretty much obvious that we grab a guitar or we write some type of lyrics. Is it the same in England?
Well, I think there's always been like you know, satire and sort of any form of speaking out. I think has always been a large part of the personality of the UK, you know. And I think within Northern Ireland, you know, even today I was listening to Stiff Little Fingers, who in my opinion, like, sort of one of the greatest bands ever, and and you know, the importance of them at the time of you know, sort of all of the disgraceful actions of the English, you know, and you know, the importance of that, and being the first people, you know, no politician had ever been able to get Protestants and Catholics in the same room, and Stiff Little Fingers were the first people to do that because they're both coming to the gigs, you know. So, but I think within English culture, I think it's sort of, I think, you know, you're sort of brought up with it to sort of criticize and sort of to speak out against. I don't know necessarily what it starts from. I think like most things, it probably starts from like inertia. You know, you just want to, there's something, you know, you want to do and it clicks and it makes sense. And I think, you know, in the early stages, it's quite rare, and I think it's quite special. You know, I don't think we were one of these bands, you know, but to have a band who know exactly what they want to do when they start out. Yeah. I think it's sort of, you know, definitely with us, we sort of discovered it along the way. but I think we were always quite vocal about our politics. You know, I think we always saw that as, you know, I think it's just it's just sort of it's within the large basis of conversations over here, regardless of whether you're in a band or not. We're a city very much aware of politics, and the country very much aware of that, especially in recent years with Brexit and Trump and Boris Johnson and the Tories and everything like that is going on. And yeah.
After how long were you approached by a record company? How long did it take to be approached by Dead Oceans, and why did you pick Dead Oceans about the others?
We were actually the last to get signed out of everyone. There was Sorry, who got signed to Domino really early. Go-Go got signed to Rough Trade. 𝗵𝗻𝗔𝗏 got signed to Sony, I think, or something like that. And we knew, the Dead Oceans came along at the perfect time. And I think what really appealed to us was the list of artists that they have on their label and on 𝗙𝗪𝗎𝗏, whether that's Mitski or 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗪 or Phoebe Bridgers and all these other people. And I think the American element of it was quite important to us. I mean, definitely the fact that it was an independent label as well. We always knew that we wanted to be on an independent label. But yeah, the American side, I think, really appealed to us, because I think that's just I think that's quite a large aspiration, especially if you're a gigging band, to go over and play over there. And, but yeah, they came along and we signed just before we went in to record Songs of Praise. So we had all those songs kind of ready and we were just figuring them out. And that was when the deal went through. And so it all came together at the right time. We were sort of in a position where we were like, look, either way, we're going to go in and do this record. And yeah, we're very grateful to Dead Oceans for all they've done. They've been sort of amazing with everything.
What I find really interesting is the fact that your two albums, at least to me, they sound very different. Your vocal style is different. You tried things on the first album that you stopped doing in the second one, like some I don't know, your voice sounds like a drone sometimes. It's like it sounds like spoken word, but it's not, and it's very creepy sometimes, and I couldn't find any of that in the second album. And even composition wise, the songs are less intricate, they're less nervous, and they belong more to a British tradition in a way of very cool music, but they belong more to that, I think. But it's an exception. It's an outstanding album, I think.
Thank you very much.
I love to listen to it because it's a straightforward album, but full of interesting things, and it's full of anthems. Is that what helped you guys build up a fan base? The fact that you had anthems like Concrete, like 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗪𝗏, songs that were in your face.
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, it's weird as well because like 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗪𝗏 was the first song we wrote. So I think in a lot of respect, it has a lot of honesty to it. It has that sort of charm where it's people working stuff out. It's quite sort of it's quite unthought out in a good way. It's just quite, I guess it's young. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's quite like a young song. We were 16, 17 when we wrote that. And I think with the new album with Drunk Tank Pink, I think, not to go back, I think having those songs was great. And I think it's that, it's kind of unavoidable. It's just my end, because I think trying to write a chorus or anything like that is a challenge in itself. And I think it's quite easy to try and stray from that. And that's not to say that, that you shouldn't try and push the boat out, or you shouldn't try different things, because I think we definitely did that with the latest record. But, it's important to take everything into perspective. But yeah, I think with the new record, I think it was just a bit more confidence. Like, I think when you tour for that long and you play for that long and you've already recorded an album, you're just a bit more aware of the process of things and what things you want to push and what things you want to rein back, and a different way. And it's the difference doing a record when you're like 19 and 20 to when you're doing a record when you're like 22. in between, hundreds of shows and other recordings and people getting more confident within their instruments and stuff, like, I think it was, it all happened quite naturally.
In songs of praise, there's a couple of songs that I absolutely adore, like Friction and Lampoon, some of the more aggressive tunes in that album. But actually, to me, like, the most appealing one is the opening track. And I think I read somewhere that that song was one of the last fillers of the album. And it came from a riff from your guitar player, and it was quite obscure. And all you guys decided to develop that obscure sounding riff into something that was an obscure track. How did it go with that track?
Really, Dust on Trial was really good. I mean, yeah, that was the last song we wrote before we went in to record Songs of Praise. And I think even within that, you can kind of see a sort of semi-link to Drunk Tank Pink in terms of the theme of the lyrics, and also Sean's use of his guitar. That was the only track on Songs of Praise where I think it was in an alternative tuning on the guitar. And in Drunk Tank Pink, Sean really explored that. I think he just read Johnny Marr's book, and Johnny Marr speaks about all of these different tunings that he would go through to come up with new ideas, and I think Sean was really inspired by that. But yeah, it was Dust on Trial, I think, as an opening track. I think when we played it and we recorded it, it just there wasn't any other place you could put it on the record apart from the beginning. And I think we're all still really proud of that track. And it's a really good opener live as well. It's a really good opener in general.
About going live, after that that album came out, you toured for nearly 2 years. Did something like 340 shows altogether. And I also read that you had some unfortunate moments because you started feeling stressed up, and you started experiencing panic attacks, and then you had to give it all a break. And also I read something like some quote that was pretty interesting about the fact that you drive 300 miles to play in front of strangers and open up your heart about your music and your songs and things that are very intimate, and then you end up with people clapping, and like you open up yourself and you get a round of applause. Did you experience some kind of did you have trouble with the whole idea of touring at some stage?
I think it was. I don't think it was like I had. I think I gave myself a lot of trouble. I think we were so young, and we were doing it for the first time, and I think you just drink a lot, and there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time to kill, and I think you sort of replace that with drinking, and then we're exceptionally lucky, but it's weird hours. You might show and have to be up at 3 a.m. to go on a flight, and if you're just sort of like drinking and you're not really ever sleeping, then of course your body's going to be run down. And I think at that age, like 19, I just thought that it wouldn't happen to me, 19 or 20, you think that you can keep going and keep going and keep going. And so I think, I had panic attacks when we were in Germany, which was in December and before we released Songs of Praise. And I just didn't know what it was. Like, I'd never had it before, so it just, I think it kind of shook me. And we had to cancel. They're the only shows we ever cancelled. And there was like 2 or 3 shows, but luckily for me, it was Christmas at that stage, so I got to have that Christmas break, which I guess is pretty wholesome in general. But I think it's just kind of like anything else. It's like a job or any passion or any exercise or anything like that. If you can burn out, and it's just sort of learning your limits, I guess, a bit. I think, I think at that time when I said that quote as well about like everybody laughed. It was like human sacrifice almost. I was just sort of in a well of self-pity. Because it's like do it to yourself, and that's why it really hurts. But I think the way you just do it is it's stressful, isn't it? You're never on your own. You're away from your family and your friends. You go through breakups and relationships, and you're drinking too much, and you're never sleeping, and you're eating shit food, and you know, spending 2 weeks in Germany in winter. So naturally, it's gonna
be hard. Yeah.
yeah.
Is that why when you guys returned, and also you found a couple of things that had changed, like the Queen's head was no longer there. Well, it was there, it just turned into something different, and you couldn't use it anymore. And also the place where you were rehearsing wasn't there anymore. Where you recorded the album probably wasn't there anymore. Is it why you chose isolation? That was self-chosen, right? That was something that you wanted, and hence the name Drunk Tank Pink, because you know it's that type of pink that it's used to relax people, to make people chill out. Is that what you needed?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, it was subconscious. It was just like, you know, the album was written when we came back from that 2 or basically 3 years of touring, and we were in London for the first time with a few months off, you know, in 3 years. And there's a thing I said before, it's kind of like being tourists in your own adolescence. You know, we would come in and out of London occasionally, and people would be, you know, finishing university or getting jobs or getting fired from jobs, or, you know, we were sort of like, you know, just starting in to very much, you know, what you do in your 19s or 20s, but then we would leave quite quickly. And so it didn't really start with the idea of isolation. I just hadn't been on my own in 3 years. You know, you're always in a van, or you're in a hotel room, or you're in a green room, or you're in a pub with someone. You're never, ever, 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 ever on your own. And so, you know, that makes it a lot easier to repress and to delay emotions. And I think when I came back to London and I moved into this nursing home, which was where I wrote most of the lyrics to Drunk Tank Pink, and there was a washing machine room, and we took out the washing machines, and that's what we made my bedroom, and I painted it all pink. Yeah, there's certain shade.
Can I sorry to interrupt, why did you pick such a weird place? Why not a flat? Why not a studio?
Because just London rent's so expensive, and it kind of worked out better. I was living with Sean, our guitarist cousin, who I've known since I was 8. And it was just a really interesting, and, you know, it was a nursing home, and there was sort of like 30 or 40 people living there, and we had this big space where we could throw these parties. And I met a lot of amazing people, and you know, it's like people, it's not that many people I know can afford to move out in London, even though they have jobs. You know, it's a difficult thing, and anyone who does live in London is always sort of like scraping you know, the last of their debts together to pay the rent or whatever. So, you know, it just kind of fell into place. And I think at the same time as well, it was a new project. I wasn't just going to move into somewhere, but I had to basically build a bedroom. You know, I had to build a bedroom, and we were in this big open space, and so we could have parties and stuff like that. So it became another sort of form of distraction, if you know what I mean. It became another thing to keep myself occupied, which I think I was sort of looking for at that time, because like I said, I hadn't sort of been still or on my own really. And so like the isolation, I think, just sort of came through just me being in my bedroom, and sort of, you know, it was not having a cause for celebration anymore. And, you know, there's only so much you can just sort of go to the pub before, you know, you start to get, you know, before you start, you know, it's only so many times you can do it. And so it was learning to just sort of like get back to some form of routine, I guess, you know, and be comfortable in my own company, which I think is, you know, it doesn't matter like how old you are or what job you do or whatever. I think learning to enjoy your own company, I think, is probably a challenge that most people have to go through, you know.
So the other 4 members of the band, they all stayed together. They all worked. They chose to work together, right? It's that how. What was the workflow like? They were working on tracks and send you tapes, or you just
no. We all live in South London, and no, we after we came back from that tour, and we took a month off. We took 3 months off because we were so, you know, we were knackered. Me and Sean went to Cuba for a month, which was amazing. And then we came back, and like you say about, you know, the Queen's Head where we started and Dropout in Camberwell, where we also wrote, were both gone. And so, you know, the place which we wrote the large majority of songs of praise were no longer there.
How did you react to that? How did you take that?
I think when the Queen's Head closed, it was very weird because we were so young, and it was, I remember Charlie's dad, our drummer's dad, who's on the cover of Drunk Tank Pink. He named the band as well. And I remember him saying to us when it was closing, it's the first time we were seeing the end of an era. And
did you think did you think it was going to spoof or jinx the whole second album idea or project?
Not really. I think no, because I think we as a band we kind of, you know, we like to try and change our environment as much as possible. You know, there's not. I think if the Queen's Head was still there, you know, we would all have probably sort of alarming addictions of some sort, you know, some kind of substance. You know, it wouldn't be good for us if it was still. It all happened at the right time, you know, and I think it's just the way, you know, we're all from London, we're all from South London, and shit changes. You know, I got evicted in September from the nursing home, you know, and people get evicted or places close down and new places open up. It's just, you know, it's a constantly changing city. And I think in some ways, you know, as frustrating and difficult that is it does make you appreciate the moment that you do find something special, you know, an environment special. But, you know, I think it was initially very difficult to get back into writing because, you know, finding a good practice space is quite difficult, you know, somewhere where you can hear everyone, or you just, it's like a good, or it's not such a, like, I don't know the word, like corporate vibe, you know, just sort of like four walls. We were always used to being in areas where there would be characters around, like people.
There would be a vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Like people would walk in and walk out. And so kind of when you don't have that, because, you know, I don't think it is for us as a band. I think we kind of rely on people, you know, and I think that's what Drunk Tank Pink is also about. You know, it's the influence that we take from the places we've been and the people we've met. That's such a large part of us. We're quite sociable as a group. So yeah.
So once the songs started flowing in after the initial difficulties, did you feel that not only the place was special, but the songs were special too?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's like, you know, you can be really excited about songs and you're really excited, but there's this great, I was listening to Brian Eno's Desert Island Disc recently, and he was saying that, you know, in his opinion, a song isn't finished until it's released to the public. And I think that's a really good quote, because you could look, say we're writing new stuff at the moment, but you know how it's going to sound. But if I just play you a crappy recording off of my iPhone, you know, and it doesn't have the same effect, and it's like you're excited about something, but there's a long way of getting it from, especially because there haven't been any gigs. You know, if there were gigs, it's different because you can see an immediate reaction. But, you know, just having something, I guess, and holding on to it and then working, you know, it's almost kind of like, you know, I'm sure you know this, I'm sure most people listening or whatever know this. It's like when you're working really hard, you're sometimes too close to see what's around you. Do you know what I mean? Like you're too caught up. I think it really wasn't until we were recording the record at Lafrette Studios in Paris with James Ford, and I was listening back, and that's when I got sort of like really, really excited about it. Because you just don't know what's going to happen, you know, like there's not just one song to focus on, there's 12.
Yeah, but there's also a change, a change in direction, a musical direction. I mean, not as drastic as one would think, but there is a change. I mean, the songs are different. They have a different structure. You sing in a different way, and it's the arrangements are different. The guitars sound different. There's a new producer in town, which is an important producer, you know, coming from a huge band like the Arctic Monkeys. and it all sounds more nervous. It's all more jumpy. Was that intentional, or who introduced that aspect to the music, to the new tracks?
I think within the band, I think like I don't really, I don't write any of the music. But I think I think what you have to do is you have to step back, and whatever is getting someone excited or propelling somebody forward, such as a new direction, then you have to let them go with it, because there's no point trying to force a 4-chord song in standard tuning if they can't think of anything. Do you know what I mean? Or if it's not coming up. And I think after playing for so long and doing so many gigs and hearing new music, you naturally, it's I've used this as an example recently. It's like if you met a painter, yeah, and and so you met the painter, and then they went off and they did 500 paintings, yeah, and you came back in 4 years' time and they were still painting. Wouldn't you wonder why they hadn't done a sculpture or picked up a pencil or, done something else? It's only natural, isn't it, that within whatever medium you want to explore and you want to push yourself and you want to try something new. And I think, we kind of knew that, we still wanted it to sound like Shame, and it still always would sound like Shame because it's us. But, if we've only, I think if you approach it as like, this might be the last record, if you're proud of something, which we are all proud of it, then it doesn't really matter anymore. We have to live with the record for the rest of our lives. And, you want to be able to hold your head high about it. But in what you're saying about, who I think took the direction, I think all of the band, I think Sean, Josh, Charlie, Eddie, I think everybody was interested, trying new things. Everybody was better at their instruments, more excited. And then James Ford is a producer as well. He loves Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart and all these other people and stuff like that. So, and he's an amazing producer and an amazing musician. So, I think we just approached it as kind of just like, we were just having a really good time.
What was his input in the writing or just the producing of the songs, James Ford?
So he was quite involved, in the way that I think with anyone that we worked with, we'd met him before, we'd done a demo of Water in the Well with him. And I think anyone that we all of the producers that we've been fortunate enough to work with, we really have a good connection with them. I can't imagine how horrible it is if you're doing a record with someone and then, you go your separate ways after you finish recording. We ate together, drank together. And I think his influence is really, like I said, he's an amazing musician. So it was really interesting how he would talk to the band, because he could show them something instead of, when people say like, make it sound brighter or, make it sound more angular, just sort of like using vague words. James would be able to pick up a guitar and show stuff. I think the largest influence he had over a song was Human for a Minute, which sounded quite different before as the live version, and we played it. And he was like, well, let's try it in this different way. And we slowed it down, and Josh came up with a new bass line immediately. And I think we all, really prefer it to the original. And it's also that song is so important on that album to have it at that stage. It's quite different to anything we've ever done before.
It's huge. It's a huge track. It's very new. Exactly. It's a new side of Shame. It introduces a new aspect of your music, which I think is awesome, especially that ending. So it's cathartic. There's so much going on, and it's pretty much what happens in Snow Day in a way. There's some patterns in that album that you can tell. It's that evolution. I think it's so crucial. In fact, what I'm going to ask you. You had a critically acclaimed album with your debut, and when you released Drunk Tank Pink, what did you think it would happen?
You don't know. You really don't know. Like, fuck it. We didn't know what was going to happen. I was really nervous. what do we think? Well, it's in the ether, isn't it? You know, especially now, only relying on the internet because of no live shows. We could have put it out, and that same day, like Beyonce and Jay-Z got divorced, and then that's why, you know, it's just like all the algorithm will go to that. So, you know, it is, you don't know, but I think, you know, we got top 10 in the UK and in Germany, and you know, the reviews pretty good, and you know, and so it was a really, really good reaction, I thought, especially in the most difficult fucking time in the world to release a record.
Yeah. Because you couldn't tour. I mean, coming from such extensive touring, then you had to stop and paralyze yourselves, and not be able to express that, if not in videos on, you know, sessions and stuff like that. Is that why you wanted to release the mini live album, the Live in the Flesh album? What's the story behind that record, and where was it recorded?
So the story is, so there's a guy called 𝗂𝗪𝗏 who runs Molten Jets, and he did recorded King Cruel Live on the Moon. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, and I was like, it'd be interesting to work with him because he has quite unique ideas. And so he came to us and with this whole narrative that he'd been working on for the past like 10 years, but waited for the right band to do it with. And so we're playing 2 nights at a venue called Electric Brixton in London in November. And the narrative is that he plays this terrible promoter called 𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗏𝗧𝗪𝗏, who only manages to sell 7 tickets for our comeback show.
Oh my God.
And so there's this kind of storyline that happens before. He only gives us like these like alco pops and like this shit junk food, and it's really just sort of like awkward and embarrassing. And he wants to be like a tambourine player and all this different shit. And then we go on and do this set, and like our manager, quote unquote, has like pushed up the lighting, and like they put in crowd noises so that you can't see so that we can't see the crowd. But so we put it up on YouTube, and it was really fun to do, and that was where it's filmed and recorded. And UK Record Store Day is coming up, I think in like 2 months.
Yeah.
And we were just like, why don't we put that onto vinyl? But it's very limited, the amount of stuff that you can get at Record Store Days. We were just like, you know what, let's just put it out. Like, we've never done a live record before. A lot of people reacted really well to the recordings of the songs live. And I think it's just quite a nice thing to have, and we're all really happy with the recording, so yeah.
Yeah, except from the fact that there's no audience. Well, you cannot hear the audience, but it sounds beautiful, and the performances are outstanding.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask you in a very short while about your new music, but what your band, I think, really achieved is, and only a few other bands did, I would say Fontaines DC in a way, with Dogrel and A Hero's Death. You already have 2 classic albums, which is quite a lot. I mean, it separates you from many other artists. Did you expect any of this?
No, I think it's very difficult. You know, a good way of talking about this, I think, is in measurements. I think what's very hard at the moment, so what I just said about how the record did in critical acclaim, yeah, okay, so that's one measure. In the 1990s, yeah, you put out a record, you have critical reviews and you have the album sales. Yeah, so it's like 2 ways. Now you have the Instagram and the YouTube and the Spotify plays, and your Facebook likes, and you have all these different ways. You know, it's like you can have somebody who has 10 million plays on a song play to 12 people, somebody who has 1,000 plays on a song play to 100 people. So, you know, it's a very difficult way to measure. So I think in that way, it's almost more sort of, you know, it's sort of like I think, going back to your point, I think, do we ever expect any of this to happen? I think no. Like, I think everything's been a surprise, and I think to have those albums is the best thing to have out of all of the Instagram likes and all of this or whatever, because those will be the things that that's the proof in the pudding, isn't it?
Yeah.
As to who you are. But so no, I think it's a constant. I think it's a constant, drive to. I don't think we've reached anywhere near the satisfaction that we want to get to. And I think you'll know when you're there, but that's what pushes the drive at the moment. But thank you very much. That was really kind words.
I'm going to ask you something that is a kind of mom or dad question. In that case, you're playing the dad. Do you have a favorite one out of the two?
It's weird because it's like, they're both like different parts of my life, recorded, like the end of my teenagehood. And then there's my very, very, very early 20s, in which, a lot of stuff has happened. So I don't know. I think we're going to need to write the third one and then find out.
If you had to pick one and put it on a player, your instinct would guide you to which one?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'd take the A side for Songs of Praise and the B side for Drunk Tank Pink.
Okay, good, because you kind of answered to my the next question that I had in mind, which, like, if someone doesn't know Shame, what song out of each album would you recommend? So in that case, you answered you recommend an entire side from one and entire side from the other one. When rock music or alternative rock music gets remixed by dance artists or big producers, like, remember what happened around the year 2004 and 2005 with Errol Alkan and Phones and Thin White Duke. They started remixing everything, like Block Party and Franz Ferdinand and all the big bands that were coming out at that time. Normally when that happens, it means that something good is being created, something's good, it's really happening. Have you ever been asked to be remixed? I saw there is something by a guy called 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗖𝗛.
Yeah.
But did they ask like for a full remix of the album?
No, so 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧 happened because Dan Fogt, who was one of the producers on Songs of Praise, manages 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧. And he's called 𝗧𝗪𝗧, and we really liked him. And yeah, he did a remix of Tasteless a while back. He's an electronic artist. And he's a great electronic artist. No, we've actually got something at the moment where I think there should be a remix of Born in Luton coming out soon.
Oh,
I think it's just quite interesting. I think as well, for the band members and stuff. I think, I think with electronic music and any of that idea, it's really cool to see how something could be transformed and reinterpreted.
Final couple of questions, if you may. The first one is, when you read critics, the people, journalists, music journalists, given their interpretation of a song or part of your lyrics, do you ever see anybody going like in a totally different direction compared to what you had in mind? Does it make you laugh, or do you let them have that kind of interpretation?
Yeah, I think sometimes it will make me laugh, but I still let them have that interpretation. I think that's quite a big, for the band, I think that's quite a big thing as well. I'm really happy to do it. I really don't care. Like, it's within my nature to just chat as much shit as I possibly can. But I think the band are definitely more people who like things to be left up to interpretation. And I think that's what music is, isn't it? Sometimes you hear the story about a song and it kind of ruins it. Or sometimes it makes it better. But, I think the hard truth is that sometimes, like with lyrics or whatever, sometimes it was literally just that might not have that much thought behind it. It might not mean these things, or might mean something completely different to me. But I see it more as a sort of it's a compliment, isn't it? If anyone's willing to listen to, let alone interpret.
Yeah, it's part of the magic, I think, of music. The fact that you can, it speaks to you in a different way that might speak to the artist, or you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm very obsessed with the context of songs. Like, I love it. Like, but you know, so some people just like to leave it, and that's fine, you know.
How weird is it to be working on a third album, whilst your second hasn't gotten any touring yet?
Well, I think we want to just try and do as much before we start touring it, because that's when it gets so difficult to write.
How does it look like? Festivals, maybe?
Yeah, maybe festivals. We've got a socially distanced tour in the UK in August. August, next month. And then, yeah, some festivals over summer, and you know, but nobody really knows what's going to happen. But you know, I think we can prepare to start having gigs start coming back, you know, by the end of the year. And when it goes back to it, I mean, it's just going to be all the time again. So I think it's that last, but it's difficult as well. In London, it's really sunny at the moment and everybody's out. So you want to enjoy social life as well as work life, you know, and it's balancing the two.
What is the new album going to sound like? Do you have an idea? Can you picture it in your mind?
Not really. I think we just I think we try and make things, eclectic, you know, sound different to the last. You know, I think we just wanted to have its own sound, but I don't really know. I think maybe some of the songs might be a bit more gentle, but that's just at the moment, just because we've been writing. And, you know, I think what's going to be interesting is, you know, it's a good David Byrne TED talk about it, where how environment affects the way that you write. And I think for the past year, the thought of doing live shows has completely gone out of most people's minds. So that's, I think, going to affect a few songs that come out from other artists and stuff, because you'll be writing in maybe a more subdued way. But I think now, with the optimism coming back, I think people are then going to start remembering what it's like to write for live. So we always want our songs to be able to be played just as well as they are on the record as they are live. You know, it's very important that we can do both, and we do keep that heavily in mind. So I think, yeah, just always keeping the live in mind.
Charlie, good luck with your third album, and good luck with, I hope, a proper tour of this absolute beauty, which is Drunk Tank Pink. Thank you for being here. Means the world to us. And if you tour and happen to come to Italy, we can have a beer together. It'd be my pleasure.
I'd love to. Italy's one of my favorite places in the world. Where are you in Italy?
I'm in Milan.
Oh wow, Milano.
I'm from Rome, but I live in Milan. So we got fans from all over the place. So, and they cannot wait to see you live. So hopefully,
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait. Thank you so much, mate.
Charlie, thank you very much. Good luck.
You.
Good luck with 𝗬𝗪. Good luck with everything. Thank you. You've been an absolute star. Thank you.
You're a hero. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you very much.